Notnerd Podcast, Episode 213, 4 years and counting.
Welcome to the Notnerd Podcast. I'm Nate Heath, and we are here to help you tech better. It was another slow news week, but we've got some fun stuff to talk about. Here with me, as always, Mr. Dave Baylor.
Happy New Year.
New Year.
Is it? Oh, it's New Year.
New Year.
I am so embarrassed right now because I'm not wearing any clothes.
Yeah, we were supposed to discuss our New Year's resolutions last week.
I'm sorry.
And you did not mention that one.
Okay. So, well, anyway, I will get some clothes on later, but for now, we're going to share a lot of tech tips, tricks, and news with you people. Like you said, it's kind of slow, but there are a few things going on and some big events going on right now that we can certainly talk about.
I had a couple pieces of follow-up. My first one, we talked several weeks ago about voice assistants and my stove timer and having to press the timer button 23 times.
Or hold it and it goes by 5.
So I did go test that, and I held it, and it speeds up, but I think it's still quicker just to tap it because it goes slow and then it speeds up. Then you miss it and then you have to go back down. So my stove is probably about 20 years old now. So
was it not new when you got your place? Because your place is not 20 years old.
It's almost 20. It was.
Is it really?
Yeah, it was like 2003.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So,
man.
And speaking of places that I sleep, I do not think that I mentioned I have now stayed in an Airbnb twice.
I have yet to ever do it. So,
yes.
You recently stayed in an Airbnb. What was the time before?
Up before Christmas, visiting some in-laws in Ellensburg, Washington. And then this last weekend in Elma, Washington, which both those places we had looked before and there wasn't a lot available, but there's more out there. And we've talked about Airbnb so many times on the show. Now that I've actually stayed in a few, I feel like we're a little more educated to talk about them. But both of them were good experiences. Both were a attached guest house, you would say, to somebody's home. The first one, both parts of the home are an Airbnb, so they rent out both sides.
Okay.
And the one this weekend, the couple was at their house on a horse farm, and we had the other side, and we got to see the donkey and the horses and the chickens, and they had farm fresh eggs. But
wow.
The first one we stayed at, we walk in, there's a nice little basket on the table with tons of snacks and drinks and a little fridge. And my sister-in-law was asking us, well, why not just stay at a hotel? And it's nice. It's a lot homier. And especially if you have a lot of people, you can find a larger place instead of multiple hotel rooms.
And sometimes it can be cheaper than a hotel with all the taxes and fees and all these crazy things.
Yeah, so I think it was cheaper and just a good experience. And they had the world's smallest TV. I sent you a picture.
I know. It was like a 19-inch, and that was
the model number had a 19 in it, but I think it was a 17-inch, like 10-year-old little Samsung. It was a flat screen, but it just looked comical in this little living room.
My computer monitor is bigger than it.
As are most.
And
my laptop's almost as big.
And the fan blades were micro as well.
Yeah. My daughter actually held up my tablet and goes, is this the same size as the TV? And due to perspective, it was.
Yeah.
So, Airbnb, it is worth checking out if you're doing some traveling and want to get out of the hotel routine. You mentioned earlier there are some big events going on this week, and that's why the news was so slow last week. But the CES, Consumer Electronics Show, is going on down in Vegas. I believe it started today. Started seeing some headlines on it. I actually saw one headline, and this is so true of CES. Samsung announces Galaxy S10 Lite and Note 10 Lite with pricing and availability to TBA. So it's like there's so much stuff that gets
non-announcement.
Yes, it's we have a product that will eventually come out, but next week we will cover, I'm sure, the best and worst of CES. I believe it's a lot of smart home stuff, 8K TVs.
That's like Apple going down there and saying, oh, the new iPhone 12, we don't have pictures, we don't have pricing, but it's going to come out this year.
There will be one, so stay tuned. We talked, and we're actually talking about it beforehand this time. We usually talk about April 17th about tax services and TurboTax and that kind of stuff. But the IRS has finally, they've been listening to us. They have changed some of their policies to make it easier. For one, they are forcing TurboTax and H&R Block, the others, to not hide their free tax preparation services. And then they're also they now have the option to compete with those services and do their own tax preparation.
And why they made it so they couldn't compete to begin with is,
money. I am rubbing my fingers together for you listeners out there, for those that are not Dave.
And non-ironically, today, I, for the third year, logged into Credit Karma just to see what I could do to start the process because I'm usually, hey, it's due tomorrow. I should probably start doing it. So it's not quite, I haven't received any documents or anything like that, but I logged in just to make sure my information was updated. So there are other options out there besides TurboTax.
Yes, it's getting better, which is a nice thing. That Salt Apple TV remote we talked about, like in Sweden or something, and I read a review, and I didn't link. I'll link to it in the show notes. But somebody got a look at it, and it is exactly what I thought. It is basically a universal remote. There's no touch part, because that's a part that confuses people on the Apple remote. But it doesn't have a Siri button, so you can't do voice dictation. It doesn't have a home button, so you can't, a dedicated home button. So it's basically a universal remote. You press like the back button, or I think maybe one of the buttons that acts that way.
I see.
But I guess apparently they do not have Siri for Apple TV in their country, it looked like.
It's not supported in all countries.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this remote, everybody's like, oh, I'd like to get one. Just buy that $9 universal remote, because you'll have the same that I use. You'd have the same features.
Or you can use the little white ones that come with your computer back in the day.
Or use your phone. I use my phone more and more, or my Apple Watch to control my TV, which
I've tried that too.
Works out well. You know what else works out well? Dave's Pro Tip of the Week.
And speaking of TVs and Apple TVs, this tip has nothing to do with any of those.
Great.
Yeah. Nate, how often have you been, let's say you're walking your dog Rex. Let's be honest, you're walking your daughter, because Rex doesn't leave the house.
Rex does not go on walks.
Yeah, so you're going on a walk, and you're thumbing through your Instagram or whatever, and you click a link, and it opens up a Safari web browser on your phone, and you're reading about the latest, greatest technology. And then you get into your house, and you're like, well, I wish I could just pick up where I left off on my computer, because I'm sitting in my chair with my computer. So what if I told you that this is possible? And maybe some people are using this, but I will admit that I do not utilize this feature enough. And of course, I'm talking about iCloud tabs.
Yeah. Tell me more.
With iCloud tabs, you can start looking at a website on one device and pick it up right on the other device. So I've linked to a support article on apple.com that you guys can see in the show notes. But here's kind of the gist of how to do this. Let's pretend you have an iPad, an iPhone, and a Mac computer. And I suppose it could probably be a PC running Safari. I'm not sure if that's
still a thing
or not, but
I don't think so.
But anyway, this is kind of an Apple-centric. But please know that if you're using the Chrome browser, if you have an Android device and you're running Chrome on your Chromebook or your PC or your Mac, you can do a similar thing by syncing your devices together by creating an account and setting all those up to sync. You can sync tabs, but it's for Apple devices, it's relatively easy. First, you go into your settings on your phone or your iPad, and then you go to the iCloud settings. That's where you tap your name at the top of the screen. And then make sure that the little Safari check box is turned on, and that will tell your devices that you want to synchronize Safari information between devices through iCloud. And then on your Mac, you can do the same thing. Go to System Preferences, click the Apple ID, make sure that little Safari thing is clicked, and then you're off to the races. And right now, if I go into my phone, let's see what I have up here. Of course, it's going to be the notnerd.com website.
Oh, of course.
No. So we host our show through Libsyn.com, and that's one that I visit all the time. So on one device, I have Libsyn up, and now I'm going to go onto my iPad. I'm going to click the icon that looks like two pieces of paper stacked on top of each other, the little tab icon, and it brings me up a list of everything. I can see a list of tabs that are open on my iPhone. There's a list of tabs that are open on my Mac across the hallway, and then it has some tabs that are currently open as well on my thing. So if I just want to pick up where I left off, I type the Libsyn website, boom, I'm logged in on both screens to the same website. Now, this is similar to what you've always enjoyed with account history. If you're logged into Google and it's like, oh, what are the sites I visited in the past 30 days? You can go there. But this makes it very simple to go from one device to another.
Yeah.
And let's say you're sitting in your chair and you go to Engadget.com to read about some tech news, and then you're whisked away somewhere else. Let's say Chelsea's driving in the car. You can bring it up on your phone with one simple tap, pick up right where you left off.
That is nice. Yes, I usually, for the case of walking and listening to a podcast and hearing a link and going to it, I just email it to myself, but this is a much more elegant solution.
Yeah, and I guess extra credit on this is you can, instead of bookmarking the page that you want to read later, there's actually an integrated read later section. You click the little bookmarks bar, you can save the tab to a read letter section, and then you can delete them when you're done.
Very nice. That could be helpful for many people to be able to transfer easily. That has long been the bane of our existence, is getting information from one device to another device, and it's getting better all the time.
Yeah, it couldn't be any easier.
Well, it's time to move on to our takes, and the takes were thin. I think it was, reading through all my articles I typically do, I think it was even about 20% less than the previous week for news articles this week. But there were some interesting things, and the first one, iPhone claims top 9 spots for mobile device activations around Christmas.
Okay, so this past Christmas 2019, Apple in the top 9. Now, why wouldn't it just be one? Like, are these individual devices?
So this chart is by individual devices.
Okay.
So the iPhone 11 topped the chart with 6.16%. Then the iPhone XR, the iPhone 7, the iPhone 8, the iPhone 11 Pro Max, iPhone 8 Plus, iPhone 6 Plus, iPhone 7 Plus. So a lot of people got iPhones for Christmas. So they were the top devices. And then market share by manufacturer, Apple had... It was over 40% of the market share. And then Samsung had about 25%. They have two different date ranges before Christmas. It's basically the whole month of December into two charts. And then all others had about 33% of the activations. So, and this was U.S. activations, and Apple dominated the new iPhone. So hopefully some of you listeners received a new iPhone for Christmas.
It's intriguing. So the iPhone 11 is basically the new version of the iPhone XR from from 2018. And that's the one that I have. My daughter bought the iPhone 11, and they are very similar. Of course, it's got an extra camera on the back, and it's got a faster processor, but chassis-wise, they look identical.
Yes.
So it's interesting to me that the iPhone 11, that makes sense that it's the number one seller.
Yep.
But the iPhone XR, last year's version of the same device.
I know, which I don't think Apple's selling the XR anymore.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But
probably
the carriers are. Probably. So if somebody goes into Verizon and says, "Oh, I need to get my kid a new phone for Christmas," oh, I'm not spending that much money.
It's or they're doing promos. Option.
Yeah. If you sign up for a contract or payments, you can get it for free. All of that kind of stuff. So that's probably where that fits in.
And then another surprising thing is the iPhone 7 is the number 3 spot.
Yeah.
That is from 3 years ago.
100 years ago.
Yeah. And when there's the iPhone 8, which is basically the same model. So it's interesting. You're right. The carriers must have a surplus of these devices that they're giving away on some type of special promotions. But
and I wonder if it's even two phones being handed down or something, or buying used phones, because this is activations. It's not purchases. So
that's true. So very, very interesting. But to take a look at the article. And then in the 10th spot, we have to mention that it's the Xiaomi. Is it the Mi?
Mi for light.
Yeah, the Xiaomi Mi.
Xiaomi Mi for LTE.
Yeah, LTE. The graphic is not great.
No.
It's hard to read. Anyway, that's interesting. That is finally we get to an Android device
Yes.
in the 10th spot on sales.
Yeah, and you might be saying, well, if Samsung had 33+% of the market share, why are none of their models showing up? Because they have 250,000 different models. I mean, there's the S line, the kind of top tier ones. There's the J line. They have multiple different lines, super cheap ones. So a lot of those are very low end phones.
So individually, they don't count.
They don't register on the thing. Apple continuing to kill it. The iOS App Store sets a new record during Christmas Day spending. $200 million were spent on the App Store for Christmas.
That's great
Christmas
for Apple,
Day.
and that's great for developers. That's a lot of money going into the hands of people making apps for iPhone.
Yes. PUBG Mobile which is very similar to Fortnite, was the highest grossing game of the day, getting almost $8.5 million.
Wow.
And then they do also note that Google's Play Store only got 30% of the spending, $84 million. So almost $200 million for Apple. And we've talked about that before, how iOS's App Store is much more profitable for these developers than Google Play Store. But
well, and Apple customers typically spend more money on
Yes.
Apps versus Android. That's a statistic that's been proven time and time again.
yeah, but just interesting to see a lot of people. I'm sure a lot of people got iTunes gift cards, so then they went and bought some outfits in PUBG or Fortnite, or bought some Candy Crush things, or subscribed to Netflix, or a million different options.
As I was sharing with some friends earlier today at a meeting, the old saying of you should always make it easy for people to give you money.
Yes.
And Apple has that down to a science.
Yes,
it is
they
very
do.
simple to give Apple money to do all these things.
Yes. Hey, guess what? Another Apple story.
Huh.
On January 1st, Apple stock reaches a record high of $300 per share.
Now, with a caveat that this is post stock split.
Well, yes.
A number of years ago, it was over $400.
Yes.
It was like $450. But yeah, then the stock split, and then it's come back clear up to $300, and then it immediately went down a couple bucks. So it's currently floating under 300 as we speak.
Yes.
But my guess is within a week's time it will break 300.
At close today as we record, it was all the way down to $299.80. So their valuation, and so yeah, the overall value, their valuation right now is $1.332 trillion. So I saw somebody mention they're already a third of the way to the second trillion. They just hit $1 trillion last year,
Yeah.
and they're already a third of the way to hitting $2 trillion, which
Wow.
is just unbelievable. It has been very great for me because I have bought a couple shares through the Stash app over the last year, and those have done very well for me.
They have. So as a reminder, don't take any stock buying
No.
advice from us. And we do each play around with Robinhood apps and Stash apps, and we purchase different stocks and stuff.
Yes.
So I do have a couple shares of Apple stock as well as Verizon and Microsoft and whatever.
But I don't feel that us talking about it on the podcast will have any influence on
No.
our financial stability.
I don't
So
think it will.
We're not quite to that level.
I
The
think that-
FCC is not going to be coming after us.
I think my two
Or
shares.
SEC. The FCC's probably not coming after
Probably
us
not, probably
either.
not.
Hopefully no government organizations are coming after us. Our fourth take, I've got a Apple story to switch things up a little bit.
It's so new and innovative to talk about Apple.
It was the only news that was out there because people like talking about Apple. But director Ryan Johnson.
Yes, this is the director of the second of the new Star Wars saga, The Last Jedi,
Yes.
and the recent movie Knives Out.
Yes. So a very popular director, and he was doing some commentary about Knives Out and talking about things. And he loosely quoted said that the Apple TV screensavers are the most influential films of the last 5 years.
Yeah, and if you're not familiar with these, if you have, like many devices, if you let them set for a while, it'll go into screensaver mode. And the ones on Apple TV are this nice, scenic flying typically through a canyon or a cityscape or some other landscape that's beautiful. And it's done in such a way that it's very relaxing. They slow the frame rate down so it's kind of ethereal in its look and feel. And the most recent update, it's an underwater view, which is quite nice. Quite nice.
I would say besides local news, I probably watch the Apple TV screensavers second. They are like, you can just sit there and watch them and you see the same one over and over. And I actually have a little program that downloads them on my computer, and they're a screensaver on my computer, but they are just so beautiful. So he was talking about how because they are done so well, that any establishing shots and drone shots and film and movies that Apple has set the standard for kind of doing these cityscape shots and that kind of thing. And they are really cool.
Yeah, they're great.
And we will switch it up for the last one, an Amazon story. And I've been sitting on this one for a while. I kind of had it in my queue, and we just hadn't had a chance to talk about it. But I thought it was very cool. We love Amazon. We're Amazon affiliates. I do a lot of shopping on Amazon. And Amazon gets a lot of returns. I actually am an Amazon seller now. I don't know if I've mentioned that on the podcast yet.
Yeah, that's exciting. So people return items to you.
Yes. So I am on the other side of Amazon now, and we do the product that we're selling. I'll talk about that another time, but we see a much higher return request rate than products sold through the website. So it's just, again, it's kind of like Apple taking your money. Amazon makes it very easy to return. Well, a lot of times this small stuff, manufacturer or whoever's selling it doesn't want it back.
Well, and I have an example. Gerber had a sale on some box knives.
Oh, nice.
And I picked up a box knife. I have one right here. It's the razor blade style box knife. And I bought one for myself and one for my daughter, because in the past she's talked about when she works at McDonald's and they have to open up boxes, she doesn't have a knife, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so I had two, and one of them, the one that I opened for myself, the little lock mechanism just didn't work. I was breaking my fingers to try to lock it, to unlock it, I guess, to fold it back up. And I'm like, this is not the way this should work. And so I opened the second one, and it seemed to work normal. So I did a return. It couldn't have been easier. And they have a new option where you don't even have to put it in a bag or a box or print out a label. You just take it to the UPS store, you hand them the item, they scan a barcode on their phone, and you walk away. You don't have to do anything. And it was brilliant. So to your point, they make it so easy to return stuff.
And all the Kohl's stores and all the options you have now. And we had a story, I don't know, 6-9 months ago about these you could buy like pallets of Amazon return stuff, like buy a lot of it and see what you get. Kind of a storage wars,
the unboxing
loot
videos.
Box. But
we should do one.
Yes, we should. This is a new program that they're doing that allows the sellers to donate these things that are returned. So if it's stuff that they don't want back, it's not worth it to get shipped back to them or put it back in the pipeline. They can just donate it to charities, and Amazon is facilitating that.
Great. So maybe my box knife will go to some needy inner city kid who needs a knife.
To open those Amazon boxes. They're working with Good 360, a global leader in product philanthropy and purposeful giving. So that several charities that can benefit from this, which is just a nice little thing. It's good to know that stuff's going to some use.
Well, and it's environmentally responsible as well.
Yes.
Throwing this stuff in the landfill is not helping anybody.
That is true. Our security and privacy story of the week. There is a new California privacy law that is in effect. Now, GDPR was the big rage a year or two ago in the European Union with all their privacy laws. This new California privacy law, the CCPA, California Consumer Privacy Act, who would have guessed, provides regulations on companies being able to sell your data to other companies. Retailers, are trying to comply with this. It's not like a complete privacy thing. It's more of, hey, Walmart gets a lot of information because you shop there all the time. You have the right to say, hey, Walmart, you can't sell my information to a third party. So I haven't heard the hubbub about this that I have with others. It's harder when it's within the United States. If California passes something, it's a lot easier just to kind of go for the whole country.
And that's what most companies do. They go to whatever the most strict laws are, and then they make it true for all 50 states.
Yes. You might be thinking, oh, this is great. This is going to crack down on Facebook and all this stuff. Well, Facebook had previously said this does not apply to them because they're not actually currently, that we know of, selling your data. They are selling advertising based on your data. So they're not actually, they don't say, hey, do you want to buy this 2-page report on Dave Baylor? Here you go, whoever, Walmart, for $2, you can buy this. What they do is you can come to Facebook, because I also do this as well, Facebook ads. You can say, hey, if there's people that live in Sherwood that like Walmart, I can advertise them to remind them about the sale we have going on or something.
Well, I think what you wanted to say about Facebook is they don't actively sell it. They basically just give it away, with like Cambridge Analytica just taking the data.
Yes,
and then
they did
selling
that in the past. And I do have to think, I know your feelings on Facebook, and I know most people's feelings on Facebook. It reminds me of back in the 80s, before we had Jack in the Box in the Portland area.
Yeah.
There was a major E. coli outbreak.
Okay.
And it was all through California, and everybody's freaking out. It was this super wide thing. And then everybody said, I'm not going to eat at Jack in the Box again. Well, when is Jack in the Box going to be the safest to eat at? After they've had all these regulators and people analyzing their E. coli outbreak, they get things taken care of. They're better than they were before. There's more rules in place. And I feel that that's where Facebook has had to unwillingly move to, is put some more of this in place. Even with Facebook advertising, I am so much more limited as to the targeting I can do, the information I can get. But yes, several years ago with Cambridge Analytica, 2016, so 4 years ago.
But it's in the news again that there's more information that has been leaked out recently.
From that
from that initial thing. So I'm going to have to check your bank records to make sure you're not being paid by Facebook to endorse them.
Yes, that's that small disclaimer where I'm just whispering at the end of the show. I do take payments from Facebook to talk positively. I have a really great experience with Facebook, and so that's why I like to stick up for the experience, not necessarily some of the things the company has done in the past.
Yeah.
For our bonus odd take of the week this week, this is an article. This one went back, but I was reminded of it recently, and luckily I am currently not in need of this product, but Pampers is introducing smart diapers that monitor pee status.
That probably would have been good if I at least had those on today.
Yes.
Instead of nothing.
That would be a start. The smart diaper called Lumi was developed in concert with Verily, a Google company. So they have the moisture strip in diapers where you can just tell it turns blue. But this has a sensor that will send it to the Lumi app, so then parents could get notifications. They actually say in this article, it's a little snippy. Parents can then choose to change the diaper or urge someone else to do it.
Oh, boy.
But yeah.
I'm concerned about cost on this thing.
Yes.
Is this something you add to existing diapers, or do you have to buy their brand of diapers with these smart sensors embedded already?
From the article, the sensors, camera, and app are part of the startup package. Users will also need to purchase Lumi optimized swaddler diapers, which come with a more pronounced moisture strip, so the sensor can properly assess soiling. This sounds like a mess.
Yeah, I don't think that anyone's going to buy these.
No. If it was something that there was a way to insert a little something on the diaper and get a notification on your phone, but it looks like this is using a camera, and
we need to make one of those, a little on a wire that goes on the inside of the diaper that can detect moisture. Boom, sends it to your phone. It's reusable, washable. Let's make one of those.
We could have launched it at CES this week. Well, better than any smart diaper is our picks of the week.
Now, I didn't put my pick of the week
in
the show notes because I wanted to surprise you. You're probably going to be happy that I'm going to put clothes on, because my pick of the week are Amazon Basics jeans.
Oh, nice.
I've got them on right now.
Wow. Those are...
I'm going to model.
Yeah.
Model.
They're trendy.
Ooh,
they've got a light wash on them. They look like they've kind of got a little bit of the stretch to them.
Yeah,
which is
they've got the stretch in them, which I require at this stage of my life.
Oh yeah, they're just much more comfortable.
They ran me about $29.
$29.
And I'm going to buy a second pair.
Wow.
I experimented with Costco brand jeans. Now they were $13.
Yes,
and it's
the dad jeans.
Yeah. I got my size, but they didn't have the stretch in them, and they ran a little small. I mean, maybe I run a little big.
Yes.
I'm not sure. They were just way too tight.
Huh.
And instead of getting the next size up, I just returned them. I'm going to buy a second pair of these because they're affordable. They're high quality. The denim is thick. Like I said, they've got this slight stretch to them. I think you could do much worse on jeans than spending $30 on Amazon brand jeans. So that's my pick of the week. You should try them out.
Well, I would, but I will challenge you to try out the Walmart jeans, which you love your Walmart, and they are very nice. I believe these are Walmart ones. I have some Old Navy ones as well, but yes.
Okay.
The Amazon Basics, they keep doing great stuff.
Yeah, but can I go on my computer and buy them on Walmart? Yeah, I guess I probably could.
And they'd probably walk them over to you since you live so close to the store.
Yeah, I'm the type of guy that if I find something I like, I just buy like 10 of them.
Yeah.
And it's done. I'm not in a fashion war. I'm not trying to look good for everybody. I just want clean, comfortable clothing. That's it. I'm kind of the Steve Jobs kind of guy. If I could wear the same jeans and shirt all the time, I would. And I probably could. I think society would think he's not washing his clothes, but I would just have 10 pairs of everything.
Well, when you have a job that you show up to every day, that's one of the benefits of my job is I don't see the same people every day, I can get away with more of that. Well, before I get to my pick of the week, we have another pick from friend of the show, employee of Gerber Knives. So thank you for supporting his company. Yeah. He left us a voicemail with a pick of the week.
Hi, Nate and Dave, and all of your loyal Notnerd listeners. This is Dylan here. You may remember me from episode 120 when I brought in a life-changing Ultra Pro tech tip to help keep you from losing your Apple TV remote. It involved using industrial-strength double-sided tape to affix your teeny-tiny Apple TV remote to your regular TV remote in order to bolster its size and keep it from vanishing into other dimensions between your couch cushions. Well, after a lot of soul-searching, I finally realized that while this is perfectly effective, it was fairly crude and not as aesthetically pleasing as Steve Jobs probably would have preferred. But as it turns out, there is a product on the market that solves both sides of this problem, and I'd like to share it with you, so that you might experience the same joy that it has brought dozens of satisfied customers all over the Tri-County area. Available now on Amazon.com for the Apple TV 4K 4th Generation Siri remote is a durable and soft silicone sleeve that not only adds superior grip and drop protection, it comes in a multitude of gorgeous high visibility colors and a lanyard for maximum security. Yes, you will still have to hunt for your remote occasionally, but as a dedicated user of this product, I can assure you the time spent looking for it will be reduced to mere seconds rather than hours or even days. Now, dear listener, I ask you, how much would you pay for a product that adds this immeasurable value to your entertainment experience? $100, $200, $1,000? What if I told you that this eye-catching, multifunctional silicone wonder could be yours for just $4.39? That's right. This life-changing product can be yours for less than the cost of renting Revenge of the Nerds 2, Nerds in Paradise. So, don't delay. This price won't last. Change your channels, change your life. Purchase yours today using the Amazon affiliate link. Nate will tell you how. Thanks a lot, everybody. Over to you, Nate.
Wow, do we have a new segment on our show? Picks by Dylan?
Yeah, we just might let him take over for a couple episodes.
We'll just do half the show. He can do the rest.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that, Dylan. That is something I might actually purchase because it is one thing. My daughter and I often joke about how many things get lost in my recliner, and the Apple TV remote with its slipperiness and size often is one of those things. So having it, just kind of think of the original Wii remote where you kind of have the rubber casing on it, the little lanyard. I saw a picture of his, and it is very nice. So I will put a link in the show notes, much like all our links. It will be an affiliate one to Amazon, like Dave's Pants.
Yes.
So on to my pick of the week. We love it when you guys send those in. Continue. Jared was working on one. We had a little technical difficulty, so hopefully we'll have that one for next week. Now, my pick of the week, this is something that I should have talked about a long time ago.
Okay.
I could not find that I've talked about it on the podcast. It is an app called Pocket Casts.
Okay.
Now,
is this where you're out in the woods and you break something and you whip this out and you can make an instant cast?
Yes.
It lives in your pocket. It's a pocket cast. Is that what we're talking about?
Yes. Spending so much time on my computer, I often break my wrist and need a cast in my pocket.
Yeah.
No, it would be another way of thinking of casts, as in podcast. Now, most people... And the statistics, Libsyn, who you mentioned earlier, who we host our podcast with, every once in a while they talk about their statistics, and it's like 60% of all podcasts are listened to just in the Apple Podcast app.
Yeah.
But Pocket Casts is one that I've been using for about a year, and they've actually made some changes, which is why I'm now making it a pick.
Okay.
Because it used to be you bought it for $3 or $4 and then you had the app. Well, they went to the freemium model where you can get the app for free. It's cross-platform. You can use it on your computer. It'll sync between your devices. It has a lot of features.
Okay.
But it's free, and then you can pay a little extra for like an extra color scheme or something. You get basically everything you would ever need.
It's just some cosmetic type stuff.
Yes, and maybe some cloud storage or something. But I could continue talking about Pocket Casts for a long time, but I'm going to add on to this episode another audio segment. There's a podcast called Second Opinions, and it is done by Ian Buck. And about a year ago, him and I connected on Reddit, of all places, talking about podcasts, and we started talking about doing an episode covering all the podcast apps. I was testing a ton of them at that time. Well, he just released this episode where he went through a podcast players roundup. We'll just put in, he gave me permission to just put in the couple minutes about Pocket Casts.
Okay.
He goes in depth on about 21 different podcast players out there and talks about some of the standards that he looks for and what's good about some, what's bad about some. Much like myself, he really decided in the whole episode that Pocket Cast is the most fully featured podcast app, especially because it is cross-platform. There's some other ones that are only iOS and this and that. I'll link to the entire... It's an hour and 7 minutes he spends going through it, and we discussed it after he released it, and for the two of us to try to do it, it would have turned into like a 3-hour thing because we would have, gotten into more discussion. But he did a very good job. Second Opinion, and that's over at thenexus.tv. He's got some podcasts over there. But yeah, so we'll add that on to the end of the podcast so you can listen to his breakdown of Pocket Cast. But if you're using Apple Podcasts, but you're doing a lot of podcasts looking for some more features, it's really got some great things like speeding up audio and cutting out silences and just some really nice things that I believe make your podcast listening experience better.
Great.
So thanks, Ian, for letting us put that onto the episode. Our Ramazon purchase of the week. We are Amazon affiliates, as I've mentioned several times in this episode. We love it when you use our links and go over to Amazon and shop through those links. I do want to do a quick clarification. I've had a couple questions on this. People have said, hey, I've gone to the link, and then it wants me to choose a charity for Amazon Smile, but I want to make sure the money's getting to you.
Right.
Well, fans, it goes to both. You can choose a charity. They get a very small percentage, and then we get a little bit larger small percentage of the fees. So you can support a nonprofit and support Notnerd at the same time through our links.
Yeah.
Which is very cool. And you can select any nonprofit that's registered. They have a database of all of them. For instance, for my Amazon account, I have selected Patrick's Children, my friend Patrick, who I went to Uganda with last year. So with the smile.amazon.com, another great thing that they do, for Patrick's Children, it says generated by me, $40.77 as of January 4th, 2020, that has gone to him. All charities have received $156,109,909.51 as of November 2019.
And why do they do this? What is their...
I think it's I'll tell you why. It probably had something to do with taxes.
Oh,
and being good-natured.
That's probably true. They can siphon off the money into taxes into charities to avoid paying taxes.
Yes,
I see.
But it is a very nice gesture that they have had built in for several years, and so why not take advantage of it?
Why
it
not?
affects you none. So back to our Amazon purchase of the week. We'll get to it eventually. We had somebody purchase, I was able to see on the anonymous reports, the Casio Inc. HS8VA standard function calculator. Now, much like our discussion on terrestrial radio, I would love to know the story on somebody purchasing a Casio standard function calculator.
I'll tell you why. Schools. So and I don't think this is mine. No, that is not mine. But my son lost his calculator, TI something, TI 80 or whatever, and had to purchase a new one for schoolwork. So maybe this is for someone who has a home business or a school, and they just want a handy dandy calculator.
Yes.
But it seems like to be a pretty basic calculator.
It is. I mean, it is your classic basic like 1982 model with the little solar panel and just your numbers, and not a scientific calculator, not a graphing calculator. I guess for me, I am always either in front of my phone, my tablet, or my computer, so I have a built-in calculator there. But to have this device in your kitchen if you needed it or something like that might be handy.
They're pretty handy if you are discussing like finances with your wife or something like that. Sometimes it's easier just to grab a calculator and go through it versus like, well, let me open up a spreadsheet and we'll do the sum call. So I can see it being useful like at a home office or something.
Well, Dave, if you find it useful, what would you pay?
That pretty basic. That thing's going to be $8.99.
Oh, no, it's a deal. $3.99.
That cheap?
Prime free 1-day delivery.
Wow, that is a bargain.
Order now.
And I think it's solar, right? You don't even have
It
to
is
buy
solar,
batteries.
no batteries. It looks like the lowest price it got down to it was about $1 for a while.
Holy cow!
Through third parties,
How
but
can
it
they
looks
make
like
money on that?
$4 is kind of the consistent pricing on this.
Well,
Got a good fake spot rating. So.
I guess I could get two for what I'd be willing to pay.
Yeah, exactly. You could have one for each hand, or one for you and for your wife, so she can check your work.
That's good. That's a good idea.
Well, with that, we are going to go ahead and wrap up this episode of the Notnerd podcast. Next week, we should have all kinds of crazy CES coverage for you.
There's going to be wacky products. Yeah.
They're always there. Products that have been announced that will never come out. Products that have been announced that nobody needs. But that's what CES is. Maybe next year will be the year we finally get there. We've been talking about it since the conception of the podcast.
Yeah, so for 4 years now, we've been saying next year we're going to go. So maybe 2021.
Yes, and this is technically our 4-year anniversary of the launch of the podcast. I believe January 9th was the first release date.
Okay.
And we are January 6th as we record, so pretty cool. 4 years we've been doing this, haven't missed a week, even had a couple extra episodes in there.
Yeah.
And here's to 4 more. With that, get out there and tech better.
All right, on to some third-party podcast players. The first one I'd like to talk about is Pocket Casts. That is currently the podcast player that I use in my day-to-day life. So as far as I'm concerned, coming into this this roundup, this is the one to beat because other podcast players are going to have to, meet and exceed what Pocket Casts currently does for me. Platforms. Pocket Casts is available on just about every platform that you can imagine. It's on Android, iOS, Web Player, Windows Universal, Mac OS, even on Amazon Echo devices. And it synchronizes between all of those. I love that feature. That's actually the reason that I switched from my previous podcast player, which was Beyond Pod. I switched to Pocket Casts one summer because I was working at a camp where my cellular reception was very, very poor, and I did not have access to Wi-Fi, but I did have a desktop in my office at the camp, and so I wanted to be able to play podcast episodes on my desktop computer without having to rely on my phone all the time. And so Pocket Casts was the first podcast player that I found that met that requirement, and so far it's been doing very, very well. Pocket Casts has a monetization model that I think is pretty ideal. The mobile versions of the podcast player are free, and you get the full suite of features that are available in those apps. If you want to use the web player or one of the desktop versions are really just kind of skinned versions of the web player. Because those players use like significant server time on Pocket Cast servers, they do charge for that. That one is a subscription model, and through that subscription you also get some cloud storage so that you can upload audio or video files to their servers, and those files will synchronize across all of your different devices, and so you don't have to worry about, which of my phone, tablet, desktop, whatever, which one did I load this file onto in order to listen to it. Pocket Casts meets and exceeds my expectations on just about every feature that I care about in a podcast player. A couple of highlights here. When show notes are being displayed in the app, not only do they display everything correctly, everything's formatted, we get images and everything embedded, but also they will, if they detect any text in your show notes that are formatted as a timestamp, right, they will make those into clickable links. And so if somebody taps on those links, it will jump them straight to that moment in the episode itself. Pocket Cast was the first app that I saw doing this, and that was what inspired me to start putting timestamps into all of the episodes. Pocket Cast was also the first podcast player I used that supported MP3 chapters, and so that's what inspired me to start embedding MP3 chapters into all of the episodes that I produce. I also consider Pocket Cast to be a very good-looking app. The interface has changed a couple of times over the last few years, but it hasn't taken me too long to figure out where all of the different features are, and once I do, it's very easy to use. Another feature that I really appreciate about Pocket Casts that most other podcast players don't have is that when you are sharing an episode, it does unfortunately use a custom Pocket Casts link to send to people, but the trade-off there is that you can share a podcast episode at a specific timestamp, and the Pocket Cast link will automatically jump the person who you send that link to. It'll jump them to that spot in the episode, which is a very good feature. One last thing to note about Pocket Casts is that it is currently owned by NPR and a few different nonprofit radio stations here in the United States, which does give me a little bit of pause because I usually prefer to make sure that like my distribution platforms are entirely separate from content creation entities and things like that. I want to make sure that our industry is avoiding as much conflict of interest as possible. But in this case, I think it's probably fine because I trust National Public Radio to not make bad decisions and close things down in particular ways and favor their own shows.